It's pretty safe to say that the most iconic Pokemon region of all time is without a doubt the Kanto region. Similar to Hoenn, it was one of the first I was introduced to, and it's definitely got a soft spot in my heart. Even though the region has had its fair share of remakes already, my personal favorite versions of the game are definitely FireRed and LeafGreen, which have some very interesting encounter tables for some of the original 151 Pokemon. Hey there, I'm Kamikaize, and welcome back to another Rare Pokemon rank list. Last time I did a video on the rarest Pokemon of the Hoenn region in Generation 3, and after making that list I felt that a good pivot point and follow-up video would be the games that were released alongside them so that it would be possible for a player to get an almost complete national Pokedex, FireRed and LeafGreen. Although these are not the original Kanto games, the tables are mostly similar to them, but there's a couple of exceptions of course. Despite the Kanto region appearing in several games as stated previously, each having a different encounter table, FireRed and LeafGreen may have some of the most interesting of them all. There are several in-game areas that are not present in any other copy of a Kanto region game that really shake things up and make what could potentially be a similar list across the board an entirely different playing field. Today we're going to look at which Pokemon take the crown for the rarest of Gen 3's Kanto region. Just like my last list, I'm going to be excluding any legendary Pokemon, encounter Pokemon, event Pokemon, gift Pokemon, which will include anything that you can get from the game quarter, no matter how expensive, Pokemon that are not originally native to Kanto, and eggs, even though there are none available until the post-game. With all of that out of the way, let's jump right in. Sitting at number 8 on this list is Jigglypuff. Undoubtedly one of the most popular Pokemon of this region, Jigglypuff is actually one of the hardest to come by, which was a bit of a shocker to me when I really did my research. Jigglypuff is only available in one spot in the entire Kanto region, which is Route 3. That's right outside of Mount Moon. On top of that, it's only got a 10% encounter rate with several other Pokemon in the area, making it a very uncommon find if you're specifically looking for that Pokemon and that Pokemon alone. Although it isn't super rare, because you can only find it in this specific location, it definitely doesn't make it any more common. And since you need it to complete your Pokedex, you should try to get it early on so you don't have to go on a wild goose chase for it later. Going back to what I said at the start of the video, Generation 3 really throws a couple curveballs into the original encounter tables that you could have in the classic games, and one of those Pokemon that becomes available to the player in Generation 3 is Rapidash. While not necessarily as rare as some of the other Pokemon on this list, it's available in 2 locations previously inaccessible in Red and Blue, that being Kindle Road and Mount Ember, where it has a 5% encounter rate in both areas. This makes it rare, but because you can find it in 2 spots, it gives you an extra area to look if you want to try and find it instead of evolving a Ponyta by regular gameplay. At the number 6 spot is a duo that will depend on the version of the game that you're playing, that being Arbok and Sandslash. Relating back to Rapidash, these two aren't increasingly rare, but in the later part of the game right before challenging Victory Road, it is possible to encounter them in the wild. In Route 23 in Victory Road, if you play FireRed, you'll have a 5% chance in either area to catch Arbok, and in LeafGreen, you'll have the 5% chance of catching Sandslash. Considering the amount of Geodudes and Gravelers you're going to encounter along the way though, out of sheer frustration you're probably going to use a Repel and call it at that, meaning that you may never encounter these two in the wild unless you're specifically on the hunt for them. Number 5 on the list is Dugtrio. In Kanto, there's only one place you can find the Diglett line, and that's in, you guessed it, Diglett's Cave. It's fairly common to find Diglett, and obviously evolving Diglett into Dugtrio is easy enough to do on its own, but if you're feeling ambitious and want to fully evolve Dugtrio right before taking on Lieutenant Surge, you may want to stake out a wild Dugtrio instead. However, be prepared to search for a while. Out of the 95% encounter table that Diglett takes up, they have a 5% encounter rate, which definitely means you're going to encounter a couple of Diglett before you find your first Dugtrio. You may not think it's worth the reward, but since the level of these Dugtrio can range from anywhere to level 29 to 31 this early in the game when caught in the wild, if you haven't gotten yourself a good ground type by now, it's definitely going to help you out a ton if you manage to hunt one down. Taking the number 4 spot is, once again, 2 Pokemon. If you choose FireRed, this spot belongs to Weezing, and if you choose LeafGreen, it belongs to Muk. Now I'm sure you're not going to specifically hunt out these Pokemon since, like Rapidash, you can easily encounter their pre-evolutions far easier at considerably high levels, but if you absolutely need to get the evolved form instead, have fun trying to hunt them down. They're only available in the Pokemon Mansion with a 5% encounter rate, so it's going to be a bit of an expedition to try and locate these poison pals. And what do you know? Another version exclusive duo combo. Electabuzz and Magmar are both version exclusive and take up the same real estate of data in their respective encounter tables. In Generation 3, Magmar's location is a bit different compared to the original games. Where it was formerly found was the Pokemon Mansion in Blue version, but now it can be found in Mount Ember in Pokemon LeafGreen. Electabuzz hasn't changed, but it has the exact same encounter rate in an entirely different area, that being the power plant. These two Pokemon are like bread and butter. They serve as the Kanto Region's 2 version exclusive duo set mons, and are both very rare in their respective locations. This spot technically would be an honorable mention in my eyes, but since I'd probably get skewered if I didn't mention at least one of them on this list, the second to last spot in this lane goes to the Safari Zone Pokemon, which include but is not limited to Tauros, Scyther or Pinsir depending on the version of game you're playing, Kangaskhan, and Chansey. Each one has randomized encounter tables, some more common than the other, but considering how hard it is to catch Safari Zone Pokemon in general, combined with how scarce and diverse the encounter rates are of these 5 Pokemon alone, there's no way I'd be able to not include them on this list. Of all the Safari Zone Pokemon, however, there isn't a single one that is more common than the other, as either way their encounter tables equalize one another, depending on what part of the Safari Zone that you're in, which is completely different compared to the red and blue counterparts. You can get a few of them by gift from the game corner, but they're still worth including in this list just by how uncommon they are. And by far, my pick for the rarest Generation 3 Kanto Pokemon goes to Dragonair. 1% encounter Pokemon are fairly rare in the 3rd generation Kanto games, and usually when they are, they can be found somewhere else, since the Kanto region is quite generous in giving you multiple opportunities to catch the Pokemon you need. The only Pokemon that doesn't check this box is Dragonair. Now you may be asking, why not Dratini? And even so, you can get it at the game corner, so what's it worth the trouble of trying to get in the Safari Zone? But of course, since most of the rare Pokemon on this list are for crazy people like me who want to go on a hunt for extremely out-of-the-way encounters that are easy to obtain from evolution, but all the more rewarding to find out in the wild, Dragonair has the highest bounty on it as hardest to encounter. Fishing in Generation 3 can be a bit of a gamble. Although it is made simpler in Fire and Leaf Green since it drops the "oh, bite" mechanic, which can completely axe your chances of reeling a Pokemon in, it's still fairly difficult as RNG can kill your chances of reeling in a good Pokemon. Luckily, since it's available in the Safari Zone, you can remain stationary whilst trying to catch it without sacrificing any of your steps. But of course, you're going to have to use a Super Rod to catch it, and since you have a higher chance of reeling a Psyduck or Slowpoke, Goldeen, Seeking, or Dratini, it's going to be quite the challenge to try and reel in this big old water snake with the chance of it fleeing from you after you land it. The Safari Zone is incredibly frustrating to catch Pokemon, especially rare Pokemon in, so in this case, to save yourself from going insane, just get a Dratini and evolve it. It's far easier, and unless you've really just got tons of time to burn, you're not going to want to go through the trouble of specifically hunting this thing down. Or are you? And that's the end of this ranked list. This was definitely an interesting one to do, since there are only 151 Kanto-based Pokemon to add. It was hard to whittle it down to just these 8. That said though, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Do you think this list checks out? Have you had trouble finding any of the Pokemon on this list if you actually went on a hunt for them? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know your story. I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe with the bell icon enabled to join the Glaceon gang today. Thank you all again so much for your patience and support. These past few weeks have been a little bit turbulent for me, but I'm committed to bringing you guys more content as time follows. Your comments and your fond words are what fuel me to keep going. Stay frosty, my friends. That's all for this video. Until next time, I'm Kamikaize, but you can call me Kai. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.